Muchachos y muchachas. Ghislaine Maxwell, now convicted 5 out of 6 counts. This is the trial that we have been watching for the past month. And yet, although, I don't think a lot of people were satisfied with the details that came out of this trial, I would still have to say that, I think that there are still some pertinent information that could help other cases in the future. But that's just, I guess, my optimism speaking. But with awaiting her sentencing, we are also awaiting to see if 2 pending cases will actually manifest, as Virginia Roberts-Giuffre has pinned 2 cases, one against Prince Andrew as well as one against Alan Dershowitz. So we'll have to see if those even go through, and if they do, what details would come about of that. Now, something that was not in the trial that I learned yesterday were some additional logistics to Ghislaine Maxwell's husband. I knew that she had a husband, like a secret husband, at the beginning of the trial process, but of course this was so secretive. We didn't quite know too much, but there's a lot to unpack and it's very interesting. Stay right there. We're going to go through it. If you've got any loved ones who are 60 or older, their retirement savings could be at risk, and they wouldn't even know it. With everything going on in the world today, inflation is making prices go up, and it would make life difficult for those you care about. But thanks to my friends at 𝘥𝘐𝐿, you can still protect your savings with physical gold and silver. Go to natlylikesgold.com or call 855-849-5132, and they'll give you or your loved ones up to $10,000 in free silver when you open a qualifying account. Go to natlylikesgold.com or call 855-849-5132 and tell them I sent you. Now, back to the show. All right, so we're back. Now, as I stated, we knew that she had a secret husband. Now, the logistics are just very weird, and this guy is just, I don't know, very mysterious. Let's take a look at all these logistics. So Maxwell, she had a mystery of millions. They seem to be disappeared or dissolved somehow. She was worth about, $3 million? I'll just say $3.5 million when she was arrested last year, despite Epstein wiring her about $30 million amid claims she transferred wealth to tech CEO husband. So she claims she was worth $3 million. She was transferred $30 million. They bought many mansions. She bought and sold many mansions. Forensic accountants believe Maxwell had a net worth of about $20.2 million in 2015, but she claimed this was down to just 2.6 million pounds. I'm just going to say that's about $3.5 million by the time she was arrested in 2020. Mysterious transactions between Epstein, Maxwell, and offshore funds, as well as buying and selling homes using private companies, have made it impossible for the FBI to fully gauge exactly how much cash and assets the now convicted child sex trafficker was. And it goes into her lifestyle, how lavish it was, but then it insists that Ghislaine Maxwell insisted her wealth had evaporated, forcing her to sell the London home where Prince Andrew allegedly had sex with his accuser to a property developer for £1.75 million in August. It was said to be where the Duke of York was photographed with his arm around the bare waist of Virginia Roberts-Giuffre when she was 17 years old. Maxwell used her impeccable social contracts to introduce Epstein into society. In return, she used the financier's millions to support her lavish lifestyle. Now, you guys also heard 2 videos ago, I kind of went through this, Ghislaine Maxwell was a landmark within Manhattan circles. She was, going from charity event to, some lavish event and some other, lavish supper. I mean, she was just in these circles. So it allowed her to have this very lavish lifestyle. All right. 5 years ago, she sold her U.S. home in New York's Upper East Side for 11.3 million pounds. I want to say that's $15 million, I think. I don't know. Sorry, guys. I'm not a converter. a cash converter. In the same year, she bought a £2 million mansion with her husband, Scott Borgerson, in the resort of Manchester by the Sea, Massachusetts. And in 2019, she allegedly bought the New Hampshire ranch called Tucked Away with Mr. Borgerson, her husband, where she was eventually arrested by the FBI. Maxwell is reported to have bought the house in cash, but those involved with the transaction claim could not have interacted with her, according to the Daily Beast, with the suggestion being that she used a number of her aliases. So it's very telling that this could have been some sort of advice by the financier, Epstein, because if you caught it earlier on, what I just said or read off was that her and Epstein would buy mansions, buy and sell them through private companies. So it was essentially almost impossible for the FBI to track these transactions or these buying and sellings. So they knew what they were doing, it seems. Continued on. So, this right here is the New Hampshire house that she was arrested in. And this is the London townhouse that allegedly where the Virginia Roberts Giuffre photo came from with Prince Andrew. That one right there. All right, continued on. Which, by the way, I mentioned this before, but Prince Andy really, really battered himself up in that interview he did. I believe it was, I need to go look it up. I need to go watch it actually again, just to refresh my memory. But he did that interview earlier this year. I believe it was like a 60 minutes type of show. And I think it was like BBC. Anyway, he really incriminated himself because he gave some details about this townhouse or, Ghislaine's house that if he didn't take the picture there, how would he know these certain details within the house, like the upstairs? He said, I didn't go upstairs, but then yet he also claimed that he wasn't even in the house. So it's very strange. Anyway, moving on. The socialite handed most of her assets into a trust controlled by Scott Borgerson after they secretly married in 2016, according to the documents filed at a New York court. The lawyer said that Maxwell and Scott Borgerson, with whom she had been living with for the past 4 years, were offering $22.5 million personal recognized bond, secured by about $8 million in property and $500,000 in cash. They said $22 million represents all of Maxwell and Borgerson's assets, which were broken down in a chart, including in the court papers requesting the staggering bail package that dwarfs other high-profile criminals such as Harvey Weinstein. Borgerson, 44-year-old tech CEO, whose name was redacted in the papers, pleaded for his wife's release in a letter to the court, writing, "The person described in the criminal charges is not the person we know. I have never witnessed anything inappropriate with Ghislaine. Quite the contrary. Ghislaine, I know, is wonderful and a loving person." So, these logistics, this is where it starts to get weird for me because, it seems to be that, number one, her assets or her money seem to have dissolved overnight, which just seems to be that she gave it to her husband. And then her husband did attempt to post that bail for her. Of course, it was denied. So I'll get into some next details, but this is the logistics on this guy with Ghislaine are just very conflicting. So continued on, prosecutors brought into evidence bank statements from JP Morgan, which shows transfers worth $30.7 million from Epstein or companies he controlled to Maxwell between 1999 and 2007. Taking the stand on the sixth day of Maxwell's trial, JP Morgan Chase executive director Patrick McHugh broke down the transactions between the late financier and his madame. A bank statement from August 1999 showed the financial trust company, a company Epstein controlled, selling $18.3 million of shares, which were transferred to the same day into a bank account owned by Maxwell. Interesting. The reason for the transfer was unclear, but in October of 2000, Maxwell paid $4.9 million for a townhouse on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. All right. Continued on. A statement from September of 2002 for an account Epstein owned with JP Morgan showed a sale of $5 million of shares were transferred to Maxwell's bank account at a bank in Palm Beach. The last transfer was in June of 2000 and showed a bank account Epstein owned transferring $7.6 million to Maxwell. The same day she transferred it to a company called 𝘥𝘁𝘮, which documents show she controlled. The same day, Maxwell wired the money to aircraft maker Sikorsky, and the reference on the transfer said that it was for a purchase of an S-76C green helicopter and a down payment on an executive finish. Maxwell imposed on a culture of silence by design at Epstein's properties where staff were told to see nothing and say nothing. So they go into the details of the trial, and we've already gone through that. If you guys have missed the trial, you know that your girl gotcha. I've been covering the trial since day one, so there is a playlist ready for you to binge on if you want all those details. All right, so this is the next detail that becomes like a little bit, it ramps up a little bit. So Scott Borgerson, her husband, he skipped her entire trial, and I forgot about that. That didn't even cross my mind when I was covering the trial. I was just so focused on the details of the trial. I completely forgot that she had a husband, but that's because he never showed up to her trial. So we mentioned that he tried to post $25 million. So this is where it gets a little interesting, and they denied that bail. So now, so soon after her arrest, trial, and now conviction, he's seen with a hot new flame. Instead, Borgerson has been spotted in the company of a new female friend in the elite New England enclave of Manchester by the Sea, Massachusetts, where he keeps a $2.4 million mansion that he once shared with Maxwell and his 2 children from a prior marriage. DailyMail.com was the first to reveal the possible new flame when Borgerson was photographed with her in the Massachusetts town in late November. So she is a local journalist, what it seems. And that's as much as we really need to know. She's a local journalist there. So this is him and Ghislaine at a speaking event. Continued on. Borgerson's relationship with Maxwell has long been cloaked in secrecy, and DailyMail.com has been unable to find any marriage license or divorce papers filed under their names in the town or county where they were living. Maxwell and Borgerson were believed to have met about 8 years ago through speaking engagements connected to ocean preservation, a subject on which they share a passion. They were both pictured speaking at the Arctic Circle Assembly in Reykjavik in 2013. In 2015, Borgerson's 14-year marriage to his wife, Rebecca, exploded spectacularly. So he had an affair with Ghislaine Maxwell despite his family still being intact. He had a whole wife, whole kids, a whole family intact, and he walked out on them. All right, continued on. The source said that Borgerson revealed his affair with Maxwell in a stunningly cruel manner after telling Rebecca he was going to London on business and he would send videos. Rebecca watched the video of him, and although he said he was going to London, he was actually in Miami with Ghislaine, the source said. That is cold-blooded. That is cold-blooded. Rebecca was sitting there with her 2 children watching this video of Scott and Ghislaine hugging and kissing. Rebecca was devastated. Things quickly fell apart after that, they added. I mean, I think we're looking at a narcissistic... Yeah, I think we're looking at a narcissistic situation here. That's really cold-blooded and lowly and inhumane for him to do that. After he took up with Maxwell, Borgerson reportedly reveled in the access of power and wealth that the connection brought. This is the part where it gets interesting. The former Coast Guard officer, Borgerson, founded the shipping data company Cargometrics in 2010, taking it to a reported valuation of $100 million by 2016. So here it is. Here's the pivot. Prior to Epstein's arrest on federal sex trafficking charges in 2019, Borgerson's connection with Maxwell apparently opened the door to new corridors of power. You guys want to hear about these corridors of power? Suddenly, Borgerson was mingling in the cream of the elite, attending events hosted by Jeff Bezos and attracting high-powered financial backers for Cargometrics, including former Google CEO Eric Schmidt and billionaire hedge funder Paul Tudor Jones. He even upgraded his $15,000 Volkswagen to a gleaming new Tesla, according to Business Insider. So they go into the mansions and, you know, those types of purchases. But I wanted to hone in on this little detail because it said Jeff Bezos and all these people. I was like, whoa, what? What are you talking? What is there? There's something there. So let's go through it. This is coming from the Daily Beast. Her husband. So this was actually written. When was this written? November of 2021. Scott Borgerson wanted power. So they're kind of speculating again because these details are just so strange with their relationship and, you know, just him in general. So get this. The weeks before Jeffrey Epstein's arrest in summer of 2019, his alleged accomplice and former girlfriend, British heiress Ghislaine Maxwell, breezed into a social gathering on the North Shore of Massachusetts on the arm of her secret husband. Maxwell, once a fixture in the elite Manhattan circles, was now leading a quieter life, assuming the role of environmental activist, suburban stepmom, and a spouse to one, Scott Borgerson, an entrepreneur and former Coast Guard officer who is almost 14 years her junior. According to one person who attended this particular mixer, Maxwell politely introduced herself before heading to the event's bar. Borgerson then saw an opportunity to brag about his acquaintance about a private meal he'd enjoy with Maxwell and former President Bill Clinton. I would not brag about that. They say it was a lunch with just the three of them. The person told the Daily Beast of Borgerson, he was trying to impress me. He's famous for name dropping. That is not a name you want to drop, sir. Not at all. So here's a little bit more detail. Borgerson relished being Maxwell's plus one, rubbing elbows with a glitterati and gaining entry to the upper crust, including a 2014 vegan dinner in Los Angeles with Clinton and his operatives. And per one Vice report, the ultra-exclusive campfire retreat hosted by Amazon's billionaire founder Jeff Bezos in 2018. Multiple acquaintances and colleagues of Borgerson told the Daily Beast that the divorced dad usually referred to Maxwell as his romantic partner, not his wife, and that she often visited his former firm, Cargometrics, with the couple's purebred Wislas and devoted time to his two children. So then they kind of go into, and then it ended because she got arrested. But I want to know more about this retreat. Revealed Bill Clinton's intimate secret dinner with Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, this was kind of some news last year, but this is very revealing. So retreat. Oh, it doesn't. Amazon. Let me look for Amazon. Bezos. So maybe not. Did it mention it? Vice report. Okay, I clicked the wrong link. My bad, guys. Hold on. I'm getting there. This was the wrong one. Okay. So this was actually written in 2019. Ghislaine Maxwell was a guest at Jeff Bezos' secret book retreat. Continued on. Every fall of the elite of the literary world and Hollywood convene at highly secretive writers' retreat hosted by Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, and no one talks about it. Not every campfire attendee was a household name. Tech entrepreneurs, industry power brokers, or also invited to rub shoulders with celebrities. Now the motherboard has learned that one of the Campfire 2018's attendees was Ghislaine Maxwell, the British socialite who is alleged to have been instrumental in grooming young women into convicted with Jeffrey Epstein's ring, reporting on Maxwell's alleged role via victim statements and court records go back to 2011. So what is she doing at a campfire, Jeff Bezos? This is interesting. This is some tea. 2 Campfire 2018 attendees apparently confirmed to Motherboard that Maxwell attended the exclusive retreat that year. One of the sources maintained that Maxwell had attended 3 campfires, including 2018, but that Maxwell was not an attendee at the Campfire 2019 held in early October. So Campfire 2018 took place shortly before the Miami Herald investigation resurfaced Epstein's crimes and Maxwell's alleged leaks to them, which eventually led to new charges against Epstein. The news further illustrates the connections that Epstein and Maxwell maintained to the wealthy elite, tech moguls, presidents, well-known actors, Prince Andrew, and, I'll just add scientists and professors, a lot of other people in the education, sort of industry too. They all came in their orbit even after Epstein's conviction. A secretive 2011 dinner in Long Beach, California, attended by Bezos and other tech CEOs, was also attended by Epstein, less than 2 years after he served time for underage crimes. So Amazon did not respond to multiple requests for comment on the story. Several requests for comment were also sent to Bezos' space company, Blue Origin, with no response. So this is the details on the retreat. Started in 2009, the Campfire is an all-expenses-paid retreat courtesy of Bezos and Amazon and is completely off the record for attendees. Interesting. Sounds like a very secretive societal type of thing, if you know what I mean. Often bringing their spouses and partners on a free trip with no front-facing website, almost nobody talking, and only occasional reports that the retreat was largely remained under the radar. Amazon, and by extension Bezos' powerful status with the creative world, has only grown since the company launched an e-commerce site in 1994. Amazon has long been influential in publishing and is now a film and television powerhouse via Amazon Studios arm. So, and it shows that, Scott Borgerson was in attendance with her. The sources who attended the 2018 retreat contacted by Motherboard confirmed the key details in Maxwell's appearance at the Campfire. Maxwell was accompanied by her husband, recently denied reports that the two were romantically leaked. When Motherboard contacted Borgerson for comment on the story, messages sent directly to his company, it went unanswered. So, that's just some interesting tea that I think you guys would have found interesting as well. This is, again, look, we know that the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, it went the way it did. And I know that some people are disappointed. But look, I learned something. I learned some new details, and I just learned a new detail now. I really think that the big question is, if Ghislaine indeed did transfer that money to her husband, Scott Borgerson, then I think that there's a lot to unveil there. I think that's the big question. I think that is an underlying detail that isn't really surfaced. Did she transfer her wealth? Because it mysteriously disappeared. She was only worth about $3 million. They were buying and selling mansions before with Epstein, or not they, but she and Epstein were buying and selling mansions. Were they doing the same thing? Her and her husband. Who knows? Anyway, something to think about. So with those details, guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Did you know that she had a secret husband? And what do you think about these new details unveiled? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for sharing my channel as well as my videos. I really appreciate it. Organic share is probably the best because it's like word of mouth. Thank you all so much, and I will catch you in the next episode.